my channel. So today I thought I would do a brand overview, or a house overview I should say. I asked on my first video back of the year what kind of videos you guys want to see from me, and you guys did say that you wanted to see a little bit more of like fragrance reviews or just in-depth discussions about fragrances that I have sprinkled into the hauls, which I do respect, and I really want to give you guys that as well. So I thought a good way to kind of ease back into fragrance reviews is to do a house review of a house that I have a whole lot of fragrances from and that I really like. I did also get tips from you guys that you want to see fragrances, like fragrance reviews, either, you know, by comparison or dupes, or by favorites of a particular kind, or by, you know, notes, like favorite violet fragrances or favorite tobacco fragrances. So I will get into that. That is so hard to do. I really want to do that by note, but it's really hard to do when you have as many fragrances as I have, because just even I don't catalog them by the kind of note that they are, and it's hard to find them through, I don't even know how many, like 600 or so bottles. So I'd like to do them, but bear with me. I thought a house review would be a little bit easier to start off with, and it's a house I adore. So without any further ado, if you haven't subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe, grab a drink, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, and let's get into it. So as you can see from the title, we are doing Paul Gaultier today, and this is a house I adore. It really is few and far in between, personally, to find a house where I feel like every fragrance is to my liking, or at least 99%. And this is one of those houses that I feel very strongly about, that I just totally vibe with, and I can sort of blind buy a lot easier. Not that I have any restrictions on blind buying, but I can just take a lot more chances with even notes that I think I won't like, because I just really, really like the way Paul Gaultier makes their fragrances, and his compositions and everything are very much to my liking. So I'll probably start with houses that do that for me. Like I've done obviously a video of 4711, but I feel like Narciso Rodriguez is another house that's like that for me. Yeah, I'm sure there's more, but anyways, the best way to start, because I have women's and men's fragrances, is I will leave the men's fragrances for last and talk about them that way. And then otherwise, there's sort of like two separate mini collections within that, within the women's fragrances, and one / maybe two outliers. So we're gonna start with outliers in particular, just so they're out of the way, and maybe it'll be easier for you guys to follow once I get along. But the first fragrance I want to talk about is actually Madame, and this is the Eau de Toilette. I want to make that clear because I know there's an Eau de Parfum version, and apparently note-wise and fragrance-wise, they are very different. So distinction to make, I don't know, since I don't own the Eau de Parfum, and I likely won't. But what I've heard is the Eau de Parfum is quite a stronger chypre, and this is nothing of the kind. So this is actually a Francis Kurkdjian creation. It's a discontinued scent by Paul Gaultier, so it's a bit harder to find, but I adore this scent. I'd heard through, I don't know, the fragrance grapevine, I suppose, that this was a particularly beautiful scent to keep an eye out from, and sort of a gem of the house in general. And I knew that obviously Francis Kurkdjian was the perfumer on this, so I had high expectations on it. And honestly, when I picked it up, it was sort of a love at first sniff for me. I think what really stands out the most personally is this has a really beautiful sort of juiciness that is super sweet, but it's like bursting with like fruity, juicy flavor, obviously scent, and I don't really see that as often as I would like. There are definitely fragrances in my collection where I'm like, wow, it's like almost like bursting is the best way I can describe it. And those ones really have always intrigued me, and I've always been really, really into that. And it's the best way that I think a fruity fragrance can be kind of not so youthful, and I mean, this is youthful, but not so body splash like. This is a really nice way to incorporate fruit within a fragrance and still make it, in my eyes, a lot more wearable as like a fragrance rather than like a body splash or something. So this has grapefruit and orange and grenadine. And what I will say is I've noticed the main thing that's really stood out to me is whenever a fragrance has pomegranate, it has that kind of bursting, juicy fruitiness. And this obviously doesn't have pomegranate, but it has grenadine, which is pomegranate liquor. And I smell it in this. I smell it in one of the Maison Dior's Absolutely Blooming, I guess. The one that has, I always get that one confused in Blooming Bouquet, but the one that smells infinitely better than the other one, that's the one I'm talking about, that has the pomegranate. That also has that kind of like juiciness, and I love it. To me, and I've said this in my other my dupe video, this is very, like honestly to a T, very, very similar to Lilac by 4711 in their floral collection. That is not the easiest one to find either, but it is easier to find than this. And when you do find it, it is cheaper. So if you've ever been curious about this fragrance, and they also both perform pretty well. I would say this definitely performs better because 4711 are eau de colones and they don't tend to perform that well. But I think it's part of their charm. But even with that said, the Lilac eau de cologne is a better performer one of that house. So if you've always been really curious about it and you can't find it, they are very, very similar, and you can get a really, really close idea of what this smells like if you were to just purchase that, or if you already have it in your collection. Also, this has raspberry and rose, and I don't think either of those notes in this fragrance are like the typical raspberry or typical rose. It's not powdery, but it's not floral. It's not tart of a raspberry, but there's like a real juiciness, and I think it's really, really delicious. Like, I just love this scent. If you ever find it and you've been curious, definitely pick it up because it's one of my favorites. I've put a reasonable dent in it considering fragrances in my collection take a long time to finish. So definitely love that one. And that is the first one in the women's collection from Paul Gaultier. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to one of the mini collections within the women's fragrances that I have. And I think when most people think about Paul Gaultier, at least their women's fragrances, or even just any of their fragrances, the first thing that comes to mind is his Classique range, which I think is just a quintessential range from the house, and really the largest collection that has spurred 1,000,001 flankers, I'm sure. The one thing I don't like about Paul Gaultier straight off the bat, and I've mentioned this before in one of my videos, I personally have a really hard time appreciating when houses have the same sort of name replicated for a lot of different fragrances, or eau de toilette, eau de parfum, concentrations smell completely different and have different notes. And also when they have like limited edition bottles so often, but then the juice will be the same as original bottles. I know it's a marketing thing. I know it's about a money thing, and I know there are reasons behind it, but really to my taste, it is annoying, bothersome, and just like a nuisance. And And so I still, to this day, have struggled, and we'll get to it, of figuring out exactly what juice is in which bottle and what Classiques to get, because I don't want to get newer bottles or limited edition bottles and have them be the exact same juice. So I only have 3 in the Classique range, and we'll obviously start with the first one that I got, the original to my collection. This is just Classique Eau de Toilette. This is pretty much what I think is a perfect musky, powdery orange blossom scent. This will remain, this you can see is a pretty good dent actually. This has been and will remain one of my favorite designer fragrances, one of my favorite orange blossom fragrances, and I think it's just exactly what you would imagine it would be. It is sensual and sexy and feminine and musky and super sweet and everything you'd want, essentially. Looking at this to smell like, it smells like that. And I can't get enough. It performs well, it has good lasting power, it has incredible sillage, and I can't see myself ever being without it, and I think it's stunning. It is the scent that got me first hooked on Paul Gaultier, and I would say to get into the fragrances, no matter if they're women's or men's fragrances of this house, you have to be a sweet fragrance lover. He really creates super sweet scents. Even the men's fragrances tend to run very sweet when compared to other men's fragrances. So right off the bat, and I probably should have said this first, if you don't like sweet fragrances, and I mean sweet, then this house really just isn't for you. And I love it. I love sweet fragrances. I think they really do well on my skin and my body chemistry as well, because I don't think my skin or my body chemistry really pulls sweetness out too much. Like, I've definitely got people in my life where a fragrance will be even just slightly sweet and it'll smell so sweet on them, and maybe that can be overwhelming. But for me, that's not the case. They just smell so true to the scent in the bottle, which is perfect. So I love this one. I think it's perfection and really is a good place to start when you're looking at Classique. So then I went in 2 very different categories. We'll go with the one I'm more certain of, and that is Classique, and I always forget, this is Essence de Parfum, I think. Yes, this is Classique Essence de Parfum. You guys, this is a newer one to my collection. I'll spray it here. I love this. I think this is a really incredible, perfect flanker to the original, because it does smell very different, where you can totally justify picking this one up. Again, a bit harder to find, and it does have the bottle of the La Belle collections, but it still has that kind of je ne sais quoi that Classique has, while it smells very different. This, I feel like, is definitely less sweet. Overall, it has a less overtly sweet and definitely less powdery vibe than the original Classique Eau de Toilette. This also has a more sort of like zingy, I would say ginger, or like ginger flower kind of esque vibe to it, which I, again, really, really like and find that I am attracted to wearing. And overall, I also would say that while Classique in and of itself is, the Eau de Toilette, I should say, is a bit more of like a pure sweet, this has a tendency to be kind of like a salty sweet vibe, which I know, again, isn't something that is everyone's cup of tea, but for me, it's a really good take on a flanker, and I love that, where it's different enough where I'm like, okay, I definitely see what they were going for, and honestly, it probably even could have been like a standalone fragrance, but I really, really like it, and I'm loving it as a flanker. The other one, which I do struggle with a little bit more of just ever figuring out what is in here, is the Classique Gaultier Airlines. There are two Gaultier Airlines fragrances for women. There's two editions, I should say. There's the one with the belt and without. Obviously, I have the one with the belt. And this one on the bottle, on the bottom actually, tells me that it is the Classique Pinup fragrance. So I'm sure you've seen that bottle. If not, it looks like this with a red pinky, like pink dress. So I'm inclined to believe that, but for Fragrantica, it has completely different notes on there, and it's not the pinup note. So I will just, since I've never smelled pinup in and of itself on its own, I will just tell you guys what it smells like to me, because I adore this fragrance, and those of you who've been watching me know how excited I was to pick it up. This, I feel like, is closer to Classique, the Essence de Parfum, then again it is to the original Classique, because there is a real freshness in this as well that is even more fresh and less sweet than Classique Eau de Parfum. If I were to put them, all three of them in order, this would be the least sweet of them all. It has a really beautiful kind of citrusy, neroli opening that I think is just like uplifting, and yet there is that beautiful like white floral sweet base there that or heart there, I should say, that I really, really love. I think out of the two Classique Airlines, I probably would be more inclined to just picking up this one. The other one is Eau Fraiche, and you know, if I were to pick that one up, I would just get the Eau Fraiche in the original bottle. But this one, I feel like I'm so happy to have as part of my collection. And if you've ever felt that Classique or even the Essence de Parfum are too sweet for you, this is a nice way to kind of have a scent in that sort of family that really has a brightness and a freshness to its opening because of that neroli or citrusy scent that I really, really like. All right, so this is the kind of outlier I was talking about, because bottle-wise, while this sort of fits with the Classique range, this is its own range altogether. And this, I know because of you guys, is actually La Belle Le Parfum. So this is the flanker to just La Belle. I know when I first hauled this, I was like really surprised because I thought I wasn't blind to buying it at all, and I was really surprised by how much I actually really liked this, because I've tried La Belle, the original, in a sample, and I was not that impressed, but I really, really like this. And I think now that you guys so clearly explained to me why where I was mistaken in that video, I figured out what it is. Of why I was feeling like these smell so different is because they are different. And this one has a very true, I mean, to me, it comes on so strong, tonka vanilla scent. Like, it is so deep smelling. It's almost ambery, and it, I think, grounds this in such a beautiful way. Whereas the original, I felt wasn't as grounded in anything, and I remember feeling like the pear vanilla combo was just like very sweet but had no base. That's just what I recall based on memory, and I could feel like, just based on the sample itself, even the few times I tried it, it was putting me off. I was like, I can't see myself being drawn to this over and over again, the way that the hype was around that fragrance. And this is not at all like that. You guys, this is very sweet. Arguably and probably sweeter than the original, again, based on memory, but I adore it. I adore the bottle, first of all. The scent is stunning, like I said. It is so decadent that it's confused me, and really convinced me that maybe I've also just like changed my taste and I do need the original La Belle, but I don't know. I haven't gone there yet. Eventually I would like to get many more from this house because like I said, I love it. But if you've ever felt like me that the original La Belle is a bit just like sweet without grounding, absolutely try the intense, the Le Parfum, because it is stunning. It's absolutely stunning. I love it. I cannot recommend it enough. It is ultra feminine, ultra sweet, and a really, really nice kind of like date night fragrance, I think. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the other collection within the women's fragrances, so the last three, and that is the Scandal collection. For a very long time, don't ask me why, I had gotten it in my head that the Scandal collection was not for me. I was kind of not interested in the original fragrance, in part because of the bottle. The bottle was just not my vibe. But I eventually gave in after many reviews, and I've got two of its flankers. So we're just gonna go in chronological order of when they were released. So the original Scandal, I believe, was released in 2017. I've got the full bottle. As it always goes, the original fragrance, which is the one in the largest bottle, is the one I like the least. It's actually the only scent by Jean-Paul Gaultier that I don't like up till now. So like I said, 9 times out of 10, I like the fragrance from a house blind, but every once in a while something's gonna come up, and I will say I do not hate this. I definitely still wear it. You might see a little dent, but it is my least favorite by a long, long shot. And the Scandal range kind of are honeyed florals. They sort of have changed a little bit now that there's more flankers, but essentially, at least the first one essentially is completely a honeyed floral. And that's really where it both goes right and wrong for me, because, or where it can go right or wrong for you. It really depends on how your personal taste and your nose deals with a sour honey note. And I've said this before because it's in Oud d'Ambroisie, it's in this, I'm sure it's in something else that I'm not remembering now, but I do not like a sour honey note. I like honey in a fresh way, a shampoo-y way, even like a beeswaxy way. But when it goes sour, it really pulls sour on my skin and to my nose, and it can venture into just smelling off-putting or even urine-like, which that's when obviously it's at its worst for me. And while this is, you know, leagues and bounds better than Oud d'Ambroisie, which really is urine-like on my skin, unfortunately, this is kind of on that spectrum of sour honey urine-like fragrances. It has a beautiful floral, white floral, kind of like jasmine vibe in there too, and God love it, it lasts forever, and it has incredible projection. If you can overspray this very easily, and it is quite sweet as well, but it's really that honey. And what it does, like today I've sprayed it right now and I've taken a long break from it. I can totally deal with it today, and it's smelling all right. It doesn't smell like my favorite, but it's smelling okay. But if I'm wearing this, you know, even twice in 1 week, it's just not going to do it for me. So I would say definitely keep an eye out to see if a sour honey note bothers you or not before purchasing this. But for whatever reason, I kept going. And in 2018, they released Scandal by Night, which I don't own, and I would like to pick up. Then in 2019, they released Scandal à Paris, and I have the little baby version, which I actually prefer than the style of having the kind of legs on top. And this one was immediately more my jam. This one has a much fresher and fruitier opening. I think this one still does have the honey note. I know the next flanker doesn't at all, but immediately more palatable. It is sweet and lovely and white florals, and this might even have pear in it, I'm not sure. But it's lovely, and it's exactly what I wished the original was. Now I have it in Scandal at Paris, so I definitely wish size-wise these were kind of the opposite, because I see myself certainly reaching for this one more. But I think this is a lot easier of a reach and a lot easier of a blind buy personally, if you're just dipping into the Scandal collection. And then in 2017, 18. So in 2019, they released So Scandal. I think this was it. Yeah, I think so. Or anyways, this is the one I got after, and it was definitely released after this one. And this one was not a blind buy because I actually had a decant of this, and this is my favorite one ever. This has no honey note. It is grapey beyond belief. It has a milk note apparently in it. I love it. This one also, you'll be able to pick it out a lot easier because it has kind of like these edges to it, and it's not just perfectly round. I love this fragrance. If you are a grapey white floral lover like I am, I die for that scent. Anything grapey, anything white florals that goes into grapey, I am there for it. This will be your new best friend. I adore it. I definitely have to do a video on grapey scents. Let me know if you're interested. There won't be that many fragrances in it, but the ones that are, they're all perfection in my eyes. And this is one of the best, if not my favorite. I have to really pull out all of them, but I think it's stunning. It's so beautiful. It's venturing out of the honeyed floral range for sure, but I think in a perfect way because I love this scent. And I know that they came out with a Scandal Gold in 2021, but I've yet to smell that one. So if you have smelled it, then definitely let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to know what that one smelled like and what you guys think of it. That one and Scandal by Night, because I have not yet got my nose on those, but I would love to pick them up. Okay, so those were all the women's fragrances. Actually, I did just remember, So Scandal was 2020 because the Scandal Gold, which I have not smelled, is 2021. But those were all the women's fragrances. And now we will get to, as I promised, the two men's fragrances I have from Paul Gaultier. And his men's fragrances tend to, I mean, more often than not, come in these sort of the men's version of the best compared to Classique. He has some that don't come in this, but both of mine come in this style. So the first one I have, I think, is just the original Le Mal. I will say for my Canadian viewers out there that there was a time where both this and the next one I'm gonna showed up on the $19.99 shelf. So keep your eyes open. It could happen again. And this one is a scent I love. It is very, I will say, both men's fragrances I think can be worn by women. They tend to be cleaner and sweeter than you would expect an ultra masculine fragrance to be. So while they are a men's fragrance, and I wouldn't say they're necessarily unisex smelling, I think it's an easier men's fragrance to try to wear if you're not usually comfortable with wearing men's fragrances. I wear everything, like you guys know. So for me, it truly makes no difference, but I will just say, if you don't usually wear men's fragrances, because these are cleaner and sweeter, you might find them easier. This one in particular, Le Mal, is quite a clean scent. There's like lavender and herbs, and it smells a bit soapy, and it just smells really nice after a shower. That's the kind of best way I can describe it. It smells like a clean, freshly showered and cologned man. And like with all his women's fragrances, I don't think the house of Paul Gaultier shies away from sweetness. And there's definitely elements of sweetness in this. Obviously not to the level of Classique or Scandal, but there is a level of sweetness in this. So if you're buying this for a man in your life, definitely make note of that. I love that one. And then we've got, and I always forget the names on these, this is Ultra Male. And this one, again, has some similar notes. I know this one's got pear and lavender in it as well. But I will say, definitely smells different. Namely because this has some cinnamon in it, which I really think adds, oh my God, such a beautiful, it's not spicy, but just such a beautiful warmth to it. And this one, actually, Ultra Male, I think is sweeter and less masculine than just the original Le Male. Namely because of the sweetness, but there's also that really, really stunning, I love the spices in this, and I feel like it makes it less soapy, but it makes it more warm and kind of a fall time fragrance, which usually I'm not into, but I love this. I think it's really, really stunning. Again, I think this is even out of the two an easier one for women to pull off. So if you like warm, spiced, sweet, kind of slightly masculine scents, then this is a really, really beautiful one. And again, the bottles are just very similar, just in different colors. So keep an eye out on that because they are very similar bottles in the entire men's range as well. So you really need to make sure you know which one you're getting your hands on. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this house overview. I hope you like these videos. I know you've been asking for a little bit more in-depth reviews, so I hope this was a good little sprinkling in if you've ever been curious about Jean-Paul Gaultier fragrances. Leave me in the comments below any one of his fragrances that I haven't tried that you've tried. I genuinely want to hear which ones you love or which ones you don't love, so I can see what I should pick up next or maybe avoid. And also let me know if you are interested in a grapey fragrance video from me, because I'd love to do that. So don't forget to subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye.